When you think of an everyday supercar, for me, there are two options. There's probably more than two options that you could genuinely daily, but as two of the daddies, for me, the two are the R8 V10 Performance, which we have here, and the Porsche Turbo or Turbo S, whichever guys you fancy getting it in. Turbo S cab, say that's the daddy of the range, that you could genuinely use on an everyday basis, that you could take the kids to the school, or in this case, take one child to school. In the Turbo, obviously you've got two small occasional seats in the back. The touch points in this car, the pedal feel is outstanding. The brake pedal feel for me is perfectly judged. I think the brakes they're not too sharp. They're carbon ceramics on this car. They come with those as standard, I believe, and not the 9,700 pounds that they were on the RS6. But the throttle is easy when you've got it in normal mode, when it's in drive. It doesn't surprise you by firing loads of power at you when you don't need it, or changing down several gears at once. The one problem I have with this car, and I know it's been mentioned in lots of other videos, etc., for me, these paddles. What is wrong with Audi? This is a £157,000 car. Come on, Audi. They rattle. They're the same paddles that you get on an RS3. There's not much feel about them. It's not an event when you pull one. It's sort of a bit dull and a bit boring. But, you know, again, going back down to the other thing, when you pull them enough times, it just never feels like it's going to come unstuck. Wow, what a car. The front end is planted. You get a little bit of understeer if you're not careful, but it's rear bias quattro system that it just feels like it's got so much grip that you'd have to be an absolute plank to fire one of these into the fields around where we're filming. There's obviously the normal drive select system that you get on all Audis. It's, you know, you can go through auto mode, you can go through dynamic mode, you can have individual mode. I always have it in individual mode, which I then have everything set to maximum attack because it's a supercar, and I have the steering set to comfort. It's just what I always do in all of the cars, and it seems to work really nicely for this car. In auto mode, I don't really know what that means. I don't really know why it's called auto mode, whether it changes its mind, what it wants to do, etc. But it's, again, driving on a daily basis, if you just leave it in that and just potter about. It's got the same dashboard as a Golf or an Audi A4 or anything like that. It has the same steering wheel. Everything is in a place where you would expect it to be. It's all very Audi. It's all very easy. It's not in any way, shape or form difficult to drive. It's as easy to drive as any of the aforementioned, and I think that's on one hand incredible, but for me, if you're spending £157,000, which is what this car is in the spec it's in, if you're spending that sort of money on a car, I want it to massage my ego. I want it to make me feel special everywhere I go. And for me, when you nudge it into sport and put it into manual, the engine in this car, the engine in this car is absolutely mighty. It's electrifying. It's a 5.2 litre V10, and it is just unbelievable. The 611 horsepower, for me, it feels like it's got more than 611 horsepower, but it is just so quick, and the noise is wonderful. So I find myself driving it further up the revs than you need to on everyday driving, but just to get that noise. And then back down the gearbox. The double clutch gearbox is absolutely fabulous. The old R-tronic system on the old first generation was just woeful, but this one is quick, seamless. In automatic, it's as good as any other automatic. You don't even notice the changes. You knock it over, knock it back into drive, and it goes straight from third into seventh, and it potters around. Goes down through the gear, we're down into fourth already. It's easy. There is nothing difficult about this car. And because of the Quattro system, to me, it feels like anybody could get in one of these that isn't necessarily that good at driving, but has a few quid. And you can go and buy one of these and get the most out of it. Really enjoy the supercar experience that maybe you can't enjoy in something like a Ferrari F12 that in the second-hand market is a similar money to this. I know which one I would sooner have if it were my own money, and I think it would be the Ferrari, because I would have it as a third car, not as an everyday car. Because to me, someone that has an everyday car that is a supercar is, you know, a bachelor in London or something like that. Now, this car is, as I have said before, the thick end of £157,000, and that puts it into a hell of a category in the market. This one's covered in carbon fibre. Everywhere you look, there's carbon fibre. All over the outside, all over the inside. I'm sure that's an enormous expense. It's got the Bang & Olufsen stereo. It's got the lovely paint job. All of those different things are making this one quite an expensive car. That being said, like, if you're buying a supercar, you want it to look like a supercar. And I'm not an enormous fan of this colour. A lot of people have been saying that they love it. To me, it looks a little bit like someone at the Audi factory accidentally spilt some blue paint in the Nardo Grey pot. Nardo Grey to me has been completely overdone, but it's each their own. Lots of people like it. It's a subjective thing. I don't really care if you like it or don't. I'd have one in bright orange or yellow or something. For me also, a supercar, its top speed has to start with a 2. This one does. It starts with a 2 and it does 205 miles an hour. As I said, 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, which in a second, when I find a little piece of road on a 60 mile an hour road, we'll do that, because it is alarming. And the way it just picks up and goes, and the way it revs, and the pace it gets through the revs is just astonishing. As I said before, the carbon ceramic brakes on this pedal feels lovely, and it also gives 15 kilo weight saving on unsprung mass. So this car at 1,595 kilos or something like that isn't the lightest supercar around, but then I don't think it matters, because you get all the luxury that comes with it, all the leather seats. They're really comfortable, these seats, actually. I've really noticed that. I've done a few miles in this car, and I have no complaints about the seats at all. All of the infotainment system and stuff like that is typically Audi. It's all in front of you, so you feel like you're flying a fighter jet, which is the same with everything that Audi produce. So you have the sat-nav on there, you can scroll through the different modes, the dynamic pack, and all of that Audi bump. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool car. It's a really good car, and everyone seems to love it. I know I get to drive a lot of these things, and I just want it to make me feel more special at low speeds, which is not really a complaint, because it's so good at low speeds and so usable every day that is the reason why you'd have one of these over something else that's a bit of a princess, I suppose. I'm not completely sold on the new facelift looks. I know lots of people are very into this whole chiseled jawbone look and the angular lines and all this sort of thing, but I think looks like that will fade with time. I think the the pre-facelift one, and even the first generation. So if you go and follow me at Motorflix Films or at Chrisitan Elvidge, you'll see that I parked one of these next to the old one, the first 5.2 litre V10 Spider. There's something completely timeless about the lovely lines that that car had, and I think people are so caught up in this angry, aggressive look, and this does, I mean, this is so aggressive, this car, the looks, but the styling cues from the Audi A1 and the Q2 and all those things, I just don't, that annoys me, and the fact that the little grills and fins at the front are all blocked off, so no air even goes through those, so they're literally just there as a styling cue, and that, on something that's this expensive that is supposed to make you feel super special, that annoys me a little bit, but again, subjective. You can tell me otherwise. But yeah, as I say, go and follow us at Chrisitan Elvidge and at Motorflix Films to go and see all the things that are going on as and when we're filming them and what's happening and little teasers and all this kind of stuff. You'll see it all on there. So go and have a cheeky little follow on there. As always, this video, as with all of the Motorflix videos, is brought to you by Reverse Camber Clothing. Now, go and check them out. They're vegan, fair wear, 100% cotton, carbon neutral clothing that's top quality. Go and follow them at reverse_camber, and you can go and get some really cool designs, all hand drawn, line drawing, etc. It's yeah, go and check them out as well. I keep going to put this thing down because the sun's in my eyes, and it is so rubbish. It's like, it's a bit plasticky as well. I'm not really a big fan of that. And I would have liked some Alcantara. I mean, on the RS6 I had last week for filming, it had Alcantara. Now, that probably was about £2,500 or 2.5 million. Honestly, if you're thinking about going and buying one of these, go. Or if you don't have enough money to go and buy a brand new one, head out, look on Auto Trader, look on anywhere else, and go and find yourself a pre-facelift. For me, a pre-facelift, yellow, lime green, orange, I don't know, something a little bit more jazzy, Spider. So I haven't driven the Spider, but I imagine that with that noise behind the Spider just makes everything a bit better. I don't know whether it flexes or whether it's not stiff enough. I don't know, I haven't driven one, so I can't say. But I think having that 5.2 litre V10 hanging out behind you, honestly, I think that would be, as a usable supercar that you don't fear is going to go wrong because it's German engineering and all of that, yeah, go and give yourself, go and buy yourself a present. It is a fantastic, usable, everyday supercar.